Hi guys, welcome to our very first AMA for the Udemy iOS 11 course. So we've been doing a few of these on other platforms and we thought it might be fun to get you guys to ask some questions and do it here as well. I hope you'll enjoy this. I certainly had fun making this, and in the future we're going to be putting out new announcements announcing for more AMAs, so keep your eyes peeled for those announcements. And if you have any questions for any future episodes, then please put them there. So let's tackle some of these questions. We've had loads and loads of questions come in, and I can only answer so many. And my team has picked out some choice questions. So for AMAs, we've chosen some questions that might apply to everybody. So usually they're not specifically technical. They're not about one specific bug or, some issue. We're going to try and keep that within the Q&A section so that they're of maximum benefit for the students who come across it. But for these AMAs or Ask Me Anythings, I'm really looking for questions that might appeal to everybody, or questions that are more generic. So I'm ready. Hope you're ready too. Let's get started for our very first round of Udemy AMAs. So the first question comes from Handel Calendar. I'm going to be murdering some names today. I'd like to put that out there to begin with. So I can speak a number of languages, but names are difficult sometimes. So I apologize in advance. So, hi Angela, how are you doing? And I've got two questions. Are you looking forward to the new Star Trek television show? And in other words, are you a sci-fi fan? And the second question is, what strategies do you have for really soaking in programming concepts? Okay, so let's tackle them one at a time. So am I looking forward to the Star Trek show? I have to say, I've never really gotten into Star Trek. I think the reason is because every time I saw it on TV, it always seemed to me like it was a bunch of people having a lot of meetings. There were like a lot of meetings every single episode, and I just wasn't able to really get into it. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, but I've never really managed to get into Star Trek. But I'm a huge fan of sci-fi as a genre, and in the last few years we've seen some really, really great stuff come out. Some of my favorite movies are things like Ex Machina. The recent Blade Runner 2049 was also slow but good. It was a slow burner, but I really enjoyed it. And oh my god, Arrival, which is amazing, incredible. So yeah, definitely sci-fi fan. Don't know very much about Star Trek. Okay, so the second question is about programming concepts and how do you really soak it in, I guess. So I think this is a really, really good question. And this is something that we talk about quite a lot in our in-person boot camps. And I remember once coming across a Reddit AMA with Elon Musk not so long ago, where he answered this question about how he learns things. And I thought it was really, really good. So what he said was basically, to look at knowledge as if it were this huge semantic tree, I think he called it. And the idea is that you first tackle, the trunk and the fundamentals, right? And then once you've understood all of that, then you move on to the large branches, then the smaller branches. And only then do you go on to learn about the things that are the leaves, the flowers, the decorative elements, because it's very easy when you're learning anything to learn about the things that will impress people. And I've certainly been guilty of that myself too. The problem is that when you learn these kind of superficial things that don't have any attachment to a fundamental understanding, the leaves don't really have anything to hang on to. And I think that was a really, really good point that he made. And I think it's a really good guiding principle for learning anything, not just programming. So that's one point. The other thing I would say is that with programming specifically, you really got to start thinking about making your own projects, because you can do a lot of tutorials and you can do a lot of challenges, or even algorithmic problems. You can tackle all of that, but until you start making things that you want to make, your own projects that you thought of, then that's really the point when you make the big leaps, when you start really making your knowledge your own. So one of the things I always urge our students in our in-person boot camps is to learn these skills, but go away and think of some app, something really simple that they want to make. It could be a timer, it could be a calculator, or you might have some sort of spin on that, right? Like one of our students made an alarm clock that wakes you up 1 minute earlier every day, so that eventually after a month he would be able to reach his target wake up time of 6 o'clock. So it's things like these that are not so difficult to make. They're not something like Facebook with Twitter bolted on and just a little pinch of Snapchat. They're not those things. And it's really important that when you first start building your own projects, don't go nuts. Don't start making something that's completely crazy, or something that's really, really complex, because inevitably you will come across, the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns, and you're probably going to give up on it. And, certainly when I think back to when I first started doing iOS development, there have been so many projects that were really good and they were probably built quite well, but I was too ambitious to start with, and they always failed, and they became too complex, too unmanageable, too unwieldy, and you inevitably end up giving up on them. So don't do that. Really make a minimum viable product. It doesn't have to be really flashy, it doesn't have to be a Ferrari. It could just be a kickboard. It could just be a skateboard even. Just keep it really, really simple and make that one thing that works by itself, and then add on or bolt on features to it. But if you have something that's incomplete and you're still working on features, it's really, really disheartening when you end up getting stuck and when you have bugs, and it's not fun. So my advice would be to make your own project, make something really simple and just make it work. And then from there on, at the point where you can submit it to the App Store, and then carry on working on new features and bolt on things to it. So that's a really, really good way of not just learning how to program, but really understanding everything. And, along the way, you're going to have to find out stuff. You're not going to know how to do everything. And no course on the planet is going to be able to teach you every single thing, right? And I think certainly, I've made a point of definitely not including every single API. But the important thing is that once you understand where to look, i.e. Stack Overflow or Google or Apple documentation, then you start embarking on a new journey of not just being a learner developer, but being somebody who is able to figure out your own problems. And the next step really is just getting very, very good at Googling. Most great developers have a really essential skill that is good at Googling, knowing what keywords to put in that will get you the relevant results, and trawling through that and looking for your solution. That is a really, really key skill to acquire. So don't ever let anyone make you feel that, looking something up is shameful. It's really not. I've worked in teams, and certainly friends of mine work in teams as well, where if Stack Overflow is down, they just go to the pub, have a drink. It's not worth it. That's just an illustration of, I guess, the fact that programmers are lazy, but also that, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to find out how to use it and how to put that wheel on and how to fix it. So, next question. So this is from Glenn Udemy, and he or she, I guess there's not many Glens who are women. Anyways, how do you suggest we go about getting a paying job doing this, i.e. iOS development? Well, I feel pretty comfortable with Swift iOS. I know my skills are not yet pro level, so any entry level position would be fantastic. Suggestions very much appreciated. Thank you. All right, this is a really good question. How do you get a job as a developer if you don't have any experience working as a developer, right? So here's something slightly off topic, but one of the things I realized is that recently I got really into resistance training. And one of my goals is to be able to do 10 chin-ups. And, I don't know if you've seen, these arms, they're not really the largest of guns out there, but, I'm determined, so I'm going to get there. But one of the things I realized is that to be able to do more pull-ups, I tried, doing more arm-related exercises, trying to use various machines around the gym. But at the end of the day, to be able to get better at doing chin-ups, I realized that ultimately I just have to do more chin-ups. And if you want to be able to do more push-ups, you just have to do more push-ups, and eventually you'll get there. And it's exactly the same with development. To get better at development, to become a pro developer, you have to do more development, and you have to do it in the context of, maybe a job or collaborating with other people in a team. And all of these skills that you need to acquire by simply doing more of it. So here's the dilemma. How do you get a job as an iOS developer if you don't have a portfolio and you don't have a track record that you can fall back on? Well, you've got to build it up, right? So one of the first steps that I would recommend you, Glenn, or anybody else who's interested in this topic, is to simply go onto websites, freelance websites such as Upwork, Odesk, or even something like Fiverr, and just offer your services as an iOS developer. You're not going to make a lot of money from this. I can say that for sure. You're offering your services to build up your portfolio. And the key thing, though, is that you're working with real projects, you're working with real clients, and you have to work with real specs. So even though you're not getting paid a lot, but you're actually learning on the job, which is really, really important. So this is not a get-rich-quick formula. This is very much a get-rich really, really slowly formula. But once you do have those skills, once you've built those portfolio sites and you've got a good working relationship with your client that you can rely on for reviews and testimonials, then you're in a way stronger position, and you can leverage that to start charging more and more per hour until you get to the point where you are proficient in iOS development or whatever it is that you can reach your, personal target amount that you want to earn. So the first step is working really, really hard for not a lot of money, but for a lot of skills and a lot of learning. And throughout this journey, you're going to come across clients who are really annoying, but also clients who are really awesome, and people who have really, really interesting projects that you'll get to build and you can call your own. And along the way, you're going to come across hurdles that you're going to overcome, and you'll learn so much more and so much faster by doing this rather than just simply looking for a junior development role at a company. So this is my recommendation. Obviously, it's your life and totally up to you, but this is what I think is the best way of going about this. All right, let's go on to the next question from Roland Gavrescu. That was probably not it. Okay, so hi, and when and how did you start learning iOS development? I will also be a UCL student from next week and wanted to ask you, how did you spend your time at UCL and what would you have done differently? Okay, cool. So hi, Roland. And you have made a very wise choice in going to UCL. It's a great university. I'm sure you're going to have a fantastic time. Everybody is really, really cool, really chill, and really awesome there. Unlike some of the other London universities. Obviously, there's a healthy bit of rivalry, but I genuinely had a really, really good time there. Although I think my experience will probably be slightly different from yours unless you're also doing the same degree. So I completed a medical degree there while I was at UCL. So medical degrees are pretty much like 9 to 5 jobs where you have to pay to work. Um, so it's slightly different from other people's student experiences where you just, I don't know, just got drunk and partied all the time. But yeah, it was really good. So your first question was, how did I get into iOS development and when and how, I think. So I first got into iOS development in 2011 while I was at med school. And the reason was because I really, really, really wanted to build this medical app that basically gave you a whole set of symptoms and signs, and you could test your diagnosis skills by using the app. And that was the main motivation of why I wanted to learn iOS development. But I mean, having started learning to code when I was around 12 or 13, having that background in programming certainly helped me pick up those skills. So I think one of my first games was a really, really terrible implementation of I'm almost afraid to look up my old code just because I know that I'm going to really be very embarrassed. But hey, you know, I was 12, what can you say? So back then I was using Visual Basic, and then I moved on to C++ because I wanted to make video games. And using that background really helped me learn iOS development very quickly. And certainly for you guys, you know, even though you're learning Swift, it doesn't really matter, because if you go away and you decide that, you know, you need another language like Java or, you know, Haskell or whatever it is, you'll realize that a lot of the foundations that you've built up, you know, what we're talking about before, the branch and the trunk, you have all of that already because you already understand how variables work, what data types are, how methods work, how you can pass messages around, and all of these things will be there. So you're just putting on those decorations, those little, you know, Christmas baubles, right? You don't have to learn everything from scratch, and it's a lot quicker and a lot easier for any future development ambitions you have. So looking back on my student days, one of the courses that really impacted me actually was I did a neuroscience degree in addition to my medical degree. And one of the courses within that degree was computational neuroscience. And it was all about reinforcement learning, supervised, unsupervised learning, basically how we can use computers to simulate what we know about the brain. And it was so, so fascinating. And that really reignited my interest in computing and IT and technology, and got me back programming, and you know, really realizing something that I loved a long time ago as well. So what I would recommend is that if you're taking a degree at university, really go for courses that have some breadth. When you get out into the real world, whether if you're going to get a job or whether if you're going to work in startup or you're going to, you know, be a founder, the thing that you realize is that, you know, getting an A or getting, you know, 100% on one of your tests don't matter as much as you think it does when you're a student. But the things that matter in real life are, you know, your breadth of knowledge. And university can be great at introducing you to things that you never even realized that you needed to learn. So, you know, a big part of putting together this course was putting together the curriculum of things that I thought were really essential to, you know, somebody who's learning development or on their journey to becoming a developer. So, and then the tutorials were really built around all of those fundamental things that I wanted to teach. So at university, it's a similar thing. You have an expert, you know, your professor who's putting together this course based on things that they know are important, which you might not have any clue about. And as great as online learning is, and there are so many really amazing YouTube tutorials, the thing that it falls down on is not building that curriculum for you. And university is very good at doing that. So I would cherish your time there. So I'm sure many people won't agree with me on this, but I would say don't aim for perfection in your grades. Just try to meet as many people as you can and have a great experience and learn a large breadth of knowledge rather than trying to memorize everything and, you know, aim for that and aim for that 100% or aim for those high grades. I mean, that's certainly something that I was tempted towards and I would say fell down on. So, all right, so the next question is from Abhijit Sarodi. Abhijit? I have a feeling that my team are pulling some sort of prank on me by selecting all the questions that have very difficult to pronounce names. All right, so let's see what Abhijit says. Okay, hey Angela, what's your approach to learning new technology? What do you do when you get stuck while learning new stuff? What are some time-saving hacks you use while developing? All right, so that's a lot of questions there. Firstly, is that working in tech means that you are constantly having to learn new things. If you stay still, technology does not, and you will become outdated. Even if you are an 18-year-old and you know about the coolest technology, I come across so many React Native developers who, became React Native developers a year ago, and they're getting really cushy and really comfortable with that one technology and not wanting to diversify or look at anything else. The important thing is that you always have to be learning. So what I try to do is try to consistently allocate an amount of time every single day for learning something that I'm not comfortable with. So for me, because I have the luxury of allocating my own time, from 9 a.m., so start of the workday, to 11 a.m. is 2 hours that are blocked out just for learning. And they're for learning things that I'm not good at. And it's really, really important to make yourself get into these uncomfortable situations where you have to perform or you have to do something that you don't know very well. Or that you are not an expert in, right? So for me, that means getting up to date with new technologies. For example, recently our company collaborated with Amazon to build a Alexa tutorial. So how you can use Node.js to create Alexa skills. And in order to build this entire thing for Amazon, I basically had to brush up on a lot of stuff that I wasn't that comfortable with. So I think, the saying that if you don't learn, you die, it's really, really true. Maybe you don't physically die, but your brain does. And I see this with, a lot of people. So, they're always looking for the next relaxing thing to do or, the next holiday to go on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in order to improve and in order to get better, you have to look for struggle. And the more that you struggle, the better that you get. And so one of the things that I look for in life constantly is a struggle, where can I apply myself that I'm not comfortable with? And I also look for situations where people ask me to do something. Hey, can you give this talk to 3,000 people? It's tomorrow, by the way. And yeah, it's recorded for posterity. So so in these situations where you think to yourself, oh my God, I can't do that. That's awful. I can't do that. No way. Those are the moments where if you do say yes, you stand to learn and gain the most. All right, so back on track. What do you do when you're learning something new? So the first thing I do is look for similarities to things that I already know. So for example, developing for Amazon Alexa, I was already pretty comfortable with Node.js. So it was more a matter of getting used to their APIs and their incredibly poor documentation. But finding the things that I already knew meant that I could start hanging my branches onto my trunks and hanging my leaves onto my branches. And this doesn't just apply to programming, of course. When I was learning how to wakeboard, I was looking at and remembering how similar this was to windsurfing, which I already knew how to do. So look for those parts of the new skill which you already sort of have a little bit of. For example, if you already know French and you're trying to learn Spanish, a lot of the words are really quite similar. And So if you first start by identifying those parts that you already know and those parts you already are comfortable with, and then you can use that to build upon and start extending into this new skill. All right, so the next question comes from Misha Espinoza. I'd like to know your habits to stay productive. What do you do and what do you avoid, and how to implement a system to stay focused? Okay, so Misha, you have asked a question that is very close to my heart. This is something I think about almost on a daily basis. I'm trying to optimize my daily routines so that I can be as effective as possible. So one of the first things that you realize is that we are being distracted as, people living in 2017. We are constantly at the beck and call of notifications. So, I have an Apple Watch, I have a phone, I have my laptop, which are all connected to the internet, and they all try to ping me all the time, and people are always in demand of your time. So you have to be really, really almost militant about protecting that time and protecting your attention span. So what I do is when I'm working on something creative or when I'm programming, I turn off all notifications on my phone, on my watch, on my laptop. If I'm doing a project and something I'm really comfortable with, say iOS development, I will actually pull the plug on the internet as well. If I'm not testing or if I'm not using any services. It just means that you get to protect that precious focus that you have and not have to spend your attention on anything else. So the other thing is definitely attention. So I look at attention as you having a set number of blocks. It's like if you have $10 to spend every day, it's the same thing with attention. You probably have 10 blocks of attention to spend every day. And if you waste that on things that are inconsequential, like, figuring out what am I going to eat in the morning or what am I going to wear, then you're already using up attention blocks, right? And you have to be really, really stingy with your attention in order to do stuff and be productive and, be creative or do things that are worth bringing into the world. So one of the things is that in the morning, I don't choose what I wear. I have a lot of shirts that are pretty much identical. And I just pick out the same colored shirt, and I just pick out something that's clean, that pretty much look the same as what I wore yesterday. And I eat pretty much the same thing every single morning, which is just a tin of sardines. So high protein, low carbohydrates, good for focus. And then that means that I've managed to get through the beginning of my day without having to make any decisions at all. And that helps me conserve my attention energy that I can use on creating apps or thinking about how to explain, certain difficult concepts for you guys. And it just means that you're so much more purposeful with your attention rather than just, wasting it and giving it out everywhere. All right, so the next question is from Stephanie Kendall. And she says, Angela, thank you so much for creating this course. I was very excited to see a female teaching this class too. That leads me to my AMA question. Do you face any specific challenges being a female in this industry? Any encouragement or advice to women pursuing a career as a developer? Okay, cool. That is a really good question. And I literally just flew back from Beijing a few days ago giving a talk to 3,000 people on this exact topic. So remember what I said about earlier on, somebody asking you to do something tomorrow? Yeah, that was it. But this is something that I get asked quite often. And here is how I think about this problem. So throughout life, you will come across many rejections, many bad things that happen to you, people treating you unfairly, or people not giving you what you want. You not achieving the things that you want because, there's somebody in your way. And you can interpret this in any way you choose. So, for example, I've been to many interviews where I've been rejected, as have everybody, right? So there was a great story from Jack Ma, the founder of the Ali Group. It's like probably billionaire, trillionaire, whatever he is. But he once applied for a job in the US to work in KFC. And I think out of 21 people who applied, 20 got a 20 people got the job and he was the one that did not. So you can interpret any of these life events or things that happen to you in any way you choose. So I've been to a lot of interviews where I've been rejected. And it's very easy and it's very tempting to think about it in a way like, oh, it's because I'm a woman, it's because I'm Asian, it's because I'm not, it's because I'm too young, it's because I'm too old, or a whole bunch of things. But at the end of the day, that doesn't help anybody. That doesn't help you, certainly. I can't change my gender. I can't change my age or my ethnicity, at least not easily. So why make it about that, right? I can honestly say that I guess I've been lucky, or I guess the way that I see the world, I've never felt discriminated in any job that I've ever done. But I mean, that doesn't mean I haven't had horrible bosses, or I haven't had people who've been mean, or people who've rejected me, or, denied me of things that I wanted. But I didn't make that about my gender or my ethnicity or anything like that. I realized that sometimes I didn't get the job, maybe because I wasn't suited, and other times because maybe I was partying until 1 a.m. in the morning and I didn't have time to prepare, right? And in which case I don't deserve the job. It didn't matter if I was a white male in my 40s. I still wouldn't have deserved that job, right? So I think it's far more empowering to think about these problems or, things that happen to you that aren't desirable in a way that you can control, right? I can control how much I prep for an interview. I can control how hard I work to understand, their business, or, for technical interviews, I can choose to spend more time and, be the best up or polish up my portfolio. All of these kind of things that are way more helpful than just, thinking to yourself that it might be because of something that you can't change. But, I'm not saying that there aren't problems in the world. Of course there are. And, we do have to tackle them using policy and all of these things. But on a more personal level, it's way more helpful if you choose to interpret these events in a way that you can change and that is within your own control. So my words of encouragement for any woman or man or child or anybody really going into development is that, look for commonalities that you have with people. For example, in our current company, we're way more divided by, Android versus iOS, or Mac versus PC, or Rick versus Morty than we are, by our genders or our colors. And it's because, we choose to interpret it that way. So make your own choices. It's your own stage. You decide where you put the limelight and focus on things that you can change rather than things that you can't change. All right, so I've been recording for quite a while and there is literally nobody left in the office anymore. So I will try and keep this short and I'll put some of these questions on the next AMA. But let's answer this last one from Bon Joel Elimanco. That was not a bad attempt, right? And what is your morning ritual? All right, so what I do in the morning. This is an ideal day. This is not every single day. As much as I would love it to be, sometimes things just happen in life. Sometimes I'm on a flight and I feel horrible. So the thing with morning rituals that people don't tell you is, don't feel bad for missing a few days or screwing up here and there. It's the trying that counts, right? So I wake up usually around 6:30 or 7, and the first thing I do is 10 press-ups. Proper press-ups. None of this, sort of whingy girl press-up stuff like proper press-ups. And that kind of gets the blood going and makes me feel a lot more awake and less likely to go back in bed, right? I think once you've got shoes on, it's a lot harder to get back into bed. So after that, I meditate for about 20 minutes. So that means I set a timer for 20 minutes, during which time I try desperately to not think about what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? Some days it is just like that and I can't help it. By now, if you guys have watched a lot of the videos in my course, you'll realize that I think about food a lot, but I also go to the gym a lot, so it's okay. There's always got to be balance in life, right? Everybody has to have something they're into. So I meditate for 20 minutes, and so personally I do TM, so transcendental meditation. It seems to me like the one type of meditation where you don't have to believe in a lot of stuff. So I find that quite helpful. And I think over the years of meditating, I've definitely found that you become a way more purposeful person. So it's very easy when you're aggravated by people, such as certain clients, that design. I don't know how I feel about this app. I feel like it's not quite there yet. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad that you feel so much. But anyways, so sometimes you are prone to automatic responses where you just get angry or get annoyed or, don't like what you're hearing. But I think with meditation, it's far more, it allows you to be outside your own body and look at yourself doing these things or interacting with people. And, you sort of ask yourself, like, if I react this way, does it help me? Does it hinder me? Does it give me any benefit? And usually the answer to all of these instant gratification type of responses or lashing out, it's never really useful. So meditation has been great for that. So then after I meditate, I try to do a little bit of journaling about just basically brain dump any thoughts that I've got in my head. It's very easy to be very in your head, that I try to put it down on paper, and once it's on paper, I can tell myself, oh, it's there, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Somebody else, namely my notebook, is taking care of the worrying for me. And that usually takes about 10-15 minutes, and then the next thing is I bring up Medium or Hacker News or Product Hunt and look at what's happening in the world in terms of tech. Look at some of the interesting tech news, things that people have built, new GitHub repos, just basically news. And I eat my can of sardines alongside that. So that's basically my morning routine. It obviously changes quite a bit. I would love to be able to add a little bit more exercise to it, but with current experimentation, it doesn't seem to have benefited me all that much. So it's constantly in flux, and certainly my morning routine this year has been different from last year and the last, but I'm constantly trying to squeeze out that extra bit of productivity. So if you guys are interested in productivity hacks, which I am hugely interested in, I wrote this article, which I can link in this video, to some of the hacks that I found that were really, really useful. All right, cool. So my tummy is rumbling and I'm going to go and grab something to eat. The office is now completely deserted. It's just myself talking to myself, which everybody is obviously used to. So I look forward to answering more of your questions in next month's AMA. I'm going to be sending out the newsletter as well later, perhaps this week or next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you haven't signed up, then go ahead and sign up for it. It's full of terrible jokes that I've thought of, as well as some of the articles that I've read, that I've come across that are really good in terms of iOS development, programming, app design, a whole bunch of interesting stuff. So if you have a question for the next AMA, then just go and find the most recent announcement and add your question there, and I will have a look at it, and my team will pick out some choice ones that maybe I haven't answered in this one for the next session. But meanwhile, I hope you guys are all doing great. Looking at the Q&A sections and looking at some of the things that you guys have been emailing me that you've built. I think everybody seems to be doing a great job, and just want to say keep going. I'm here for you in the Q&A section, as well as on AMAs, and also in the newsletters I send out. And you know, if you get stuck, don't give up. Just keep going, or ask a question, or go onto Stack Overflow and, you know, power through, and you will eventually get there. And I look forward to seeing more of all of your awesome things that you guys have been building or are going to build, and publishing it and shouting all about it to everybody I know and all my students. So good luck, and I'll see you back in the course, and maybe next month as well. All right, bye guys.